When future historians chronicle our own dark time, they're going to sift through the papers, they're going to look at the periodicals, they're going to see who best captured and understood the barbarism of the Trump era, what it was, whence it came, what it said about America. And when they do that, I'm confident that they'll find perhaps the most perceptive commentator on this catastrophe to be the recipient of this year's Hillman Award for Opinion and Analysis Journalism, the Atlantic's Adam Serwer. In article after article, Adam has dissected Trump, the Trumpians, Trumpism, in prose that is at once cool and infuriated, judicious and impassioned. Unlike the current Democratic frontrunner, he doesn't view Trump as some kind of inexplicable anomaly who arose and will, once he's gone, all will be well. Adam began one consideration of Trumpism by writing about the photos he had seen of lynchings in Washington's Museum of African American History, in particular writing about the smiling, laughing white men posing for photos in the company of their friends and family alongside the mutilated body of some black man or boy. Adam has noted a similar camaraderie of cruelty in the legions of Trump's supporters, and here is what he's written on that. Taking joy in suffering is more human than most would like to admit. Somewhere on the wide spectrum between adolescent teasing and the smiling white men in the lynching photographs are the Trump supporters whose community is built by rejoicing in the anguish of those they see as unlike them, who have found in their shared cruelty an answer to the loneliness and atomization of modern life. Trump's only real authentic pleasure is in cruelty. It is that cruelty and the delight it brings them that binds his most ardent supporters to him in shared scorn for those they hate and fear, immigrants, black voters, feminists, and treasonous white men who empathize with any of those who would steal their birthright. The president's ability to execute that cruelty through word and deed makes them euphoric. It makes them feel good, it makes them feel proud, it makes them feel happy, it makes them feel united. And as long as he makes them feel that way, they will let him get away with anything, no matter what it costs them. Adam knows that we've been here before, and his writing is informed by a keen sense of history, about knowing our past as a way to help us navigate through the present. And he knows where we've been, and he knows we could go there again. And here's what he's written in another of his columns on that. I suspect that part of what horrifies Americans is not the novelty of Trump's policy, but its familiarity. Americans are fighting a part of themselves that they naively thought they had vanquished. From chattel slavery to American Indian schools to convict leasing, child snatching has been a tradition in America since before there was an America. If one is convinced that the parents are not truly human, then the children cannot truly be children, and what should be unthinkable becomes inevitable. The sins of the past are not guardrails. There is nothing to prevent them from being committed again, except for the dedication of the living to creating a better world. For his understanding of humanity and the power with which he expresses that understanding, and for his own humanity. The 2019 Hillman Award for Opinion and Analysis in Journalism goes to the Atlantic's Adam Serwer.
So I just want to say thank you to Harold for that very kind introduction, and I want to say thank you to my editors at The Atlantic, Yoni Applebaum in particular, who's my direct editor, and all of my colleagues for being supportive and for giving me a platform to write the things that I write. It's such an honor to receive the Hillman and to be here with my fellow Hillman honorees who are engaged in creating a historical record that will outlive the madness of our present moment, and whose work has deeply informed my own. But I also want to thank my parents who are here, who I'm so very fortunate to have, and my wife, who cannot be here, who has always held me down and is the most important person in my life. I want to talk a little bit about public memory, how people think and conceive of their past shapes their future, because it determines how they evaluate their present. Whether the world that they live in is a just one, or one in which justice has yet to be delivered. So I currently live in Texas. In 1861, Texas seceded from the Union. Texas' Declaration of Causes, which announced the state's secession, is a lot like the other states who seceded in that it mentions slavery. She, that's Texas, was received into the Confederacy as a commonwealth holding, maintaining, and protecting the institution known as Negro slavery, that the servitude of the African to the white race within her limits, a relation that had existed from the first settlement of her wilderness by the white race, and which her people should exist for all future time. Now, see, what's interesting, though, is that if you go to Austin, the capital of Texas, there is a Confederate Memorial on the Capitol grounds. So now, what does it say on the memorial? It says, quote, "died for states' rights, guaranteed under the Constitution." And I'm going to read a little bit from the plaque. It says, "The people of the South, animated by the spirit of 1776, to preserve their rights, withdrew from the federal compact in 1861. The North resorted to coercion. The South, against overwhelming numbers and resources, fought until exhausted." Now that's a little different from the Declaration of Causes, isn't it? Nothing about the white race, nothing about all future time, just rights and coercion. Are you against rights? Do you support coercion? Of course not. Now, maybe 100 or so feet away, there's a different memorial. It's called the African American History Memorial, and it's largely a memorial to the enslaved and a memorial to the emancipated. It says, "Although blacks did serve on juries, vote, and hold office for a few years from the late 1870s until the 20th century, their rights were constantly threatened at the local level and taken away after 1900. Now, let's go back to the Confederate Memorial, because there's some fine print on it, and it's important. The fine print says, "erected in 1901 by surviving comrades." Now, that's not a coincidence that Black Americans' rights are taken away in Texas after 1900, and that's much later than in other states. And in 1901, a Confederate memorial appears on the state capitol, because it's not really a memorial to the war dead. It's not a memorial to a fight against coercion. After all, the state of Texas, by its own words, seceded to preserve the right of one group of people to enslave another group of people for all future time. It's a memorial to treason in defense of slavery, but it's also a victory memorial. It symbolizes the rights taken away from black people in Texas. That's why it's erected in 1901. Because like the vast majority of the Confederate memorials in America, it was built to symbolize the white South winning the war by restoring its traditional racial hierarchy. Now, when Trump got elected, many people, particularly on the left, asked how this could happen. They said, "This is not who we are." But that was never true. The forces that brought America to this point have always been with us. The cruelty has always been with us since the beginning. And forgetting or refusing to remember how these forces shaped American history helped make this moment possible. So memory is actually really hard. Anyone can do it. But just like people repress bad memories, societies can too. And at a time when people no longer feel an obligation to tell the truth, when they think they can reshape reality through the mere repetition of dishonesty, telling the truth becomes even more important. We've got fake news, alternative facts, pick your poison. But the job of journalists remains the same. It is not to tell people what we think they want to hear or what we think will persuade them. It is to tell them the truth as we see it, as best we can. Whether we like it or not, we are engaged in the creation of public memory. The work that journalists do today lays the foundation for the society that our children will inherit. And for the past 2 years, My writing has been focused on excavating the American antecedents to Trumpism. I'm not trying to get a Trump supporter to see it my way. All I want is for people to understand what really happened here. Most of all, I want people in the future to be able to remember. Thank you.